Hi, how you doing? My name's Peter Canellis, and I'd like to give you a little tutorial here on "Here Comes the Sun" by George Harrison and the Beatles. I'm just going to play the A section and the B section, and maybe we can just talk about that today. So it's Capo 7, as you see. It's the key of D, and let me just play it for you, and you'll see what we're after here. Okay, so that was the intro, and the intro is the A section, and then it was followed by the B section, which is where the vocals actually start. So in later videos, I'll be covering, the form of the song. But let's just talk about the A section, right? Okay, this is the intro. It's also the A section. Okay, so you get up to there. It's using 3 chords in the key of D. It's a D chord. Okay, so this isn't for total beginners. You have to know some chords and have some know-how on the guitar. So, if you haven't learned your D chord and your G chord and your A chord, you want to go back and study that. I'll be having some videos on that also, if you want to check them out. This is actually my first video, so we'll see how it comes out. Okay, so you have a D chord. Okay, so it's a D chord. So you hit D in the bass, then you strum through, and then you hit the B string, and then you lift up the second finger, and then you put the second finger back down, and then you go D string to the B string, back to the D string. Okay? So it starts with D in the bass. Bass means your low note of the chord, right? So D in the bass, then strum through the chord, then hit the B string, then the open E string, and you don't want to lift these other fingers of the D chord, right? You just lift the second finger. So you lift the second finger, then you put it back, then you hit the D in the bass, then D in the bass, and then D in the bass. And with this whole song, the picking pattern that you use is very important, okay? Because if you don't strum it correctly and pick with the right downstroke and upstroke, it's not going to sound right. Okay, so you do D in the bass with a downstroke, and you go strum through with a downstroke, then upstroke on the B string, downstroke on the open E, upstroke when you put it back, when you put the second finger back, then back to the D string, then the B string, then the D string. Okay, and those last 3 are downstroke, upstroke, downstroke. So just watch. So it's bass, down, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. Okay? So down, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. Okay? So that's the first little phrase, right? Okay? And now that's followed by you would strum on the D chord on a downstroke, then you lift up your second finger and play it with an upstroke, and then a downstroke on the D string, and then an upstroke on the B string, and you end with a downstroke on the D string. Okay, so that second phrase is strum through, then an upstroke on an open E string, right? You're lifting your second finger, and then a downstroke on the D string, and then you're going to do an upstroke on the B string, and then a downstroke on the D string. Okay? So here's the first phrase. Okay, and then right from there, you strum down, and then an upstroke on the E string, and then downstroke on the D string, and then an upstroke on the B string, and a downstroke downstroke on the D string. Okay, so this is the whole like first phrase. So it's right. A little slower. Open E, put it back, D string, B string, D string, strum through, open E, D string, B string, D string. Okay, so that's all based on a D chord. You play it fast. Sounds just like the song. Okay, so now what happens next is you go to a G chord, okay, but if it's not your standard G shape, it's just the third finger on the bass note, on the G and the bass, that's the third fret. Okay, so you're going to play your G chord like that, okay? You don't want to play it the other way because you have to do some little fancy finger work with your pinky. So after this, then the next thing you hear to get you to the G chord is two open strings, an open B string and an open G string with an upstroke, and then you land on the third finger in the bass, right? So it's upstroke on the D string and G string, and then land on the third finger in the bass. And when you do this upstroke, you know, just aim for the B string, and you'll catch the G string. You know, just let it catch both strings, nice and gentle, right? Upstroke on the B string and G string, that gets you into the G chord. Now, when you're on the G chord section, every other note is the bass note, is the third finger on the low E string. So you do this, then a bass note, then you have this little melody going on top, right? So you do the two open strings, gets you started, then a bass note, then you put the pinky on the third fret on the B string, and you do an upstroke, and then a bass note. Every other note is a bass note with the G chord. Then you do two open strings on top, the open B string and the open E string, then a bass note, and then you put your pinky back down where it was before, okay, on the B string, on the third fret, and then a bass note, and then you end right where you started, right? So you do the two open strings, bass note, pinky on the third fret on the B string, bass note, two open strings on top, the B string and the E string, bass note, back to the pinky where it was before on the B string, and then right back where you started with the two open notes. Okay, so altogether it's going to sound like this. Right? Two open strings to start, bass note, pinky on the B string, two open strings on top, pinky back on the B string, and then back where you started from. So you want to hear this melody on top. Ba, 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 right? Ba, 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 ba. So coming from the first section, okay, again, slower. Okay, and now, excuse me, the last chord of this section is the A7 chord. Okay, so you make an A7 shape, and you're going to use your first finger and your second finger. Work nicely. You know, fingerings are always, you know, if you come up with something you like better and it still sounds good, that's fine, right? Fingerings should just kind of make sense somehow. Okay, so this makes sense. So you're going to do an A7. Okay, so first finger on the D string, open G string, second finger on the B string. Yeah, and you play five strings, right? No E, right? The E doesn't belong on an A7 chord. Okay, so you do this. So you strum through up to the, you got to learn like pick control, right? So you got to strum through to the B string, and then lift up the B, and then put it back down, and then the third finger, and then back to the E. Okay, so it's this. So you do second, strum up to the second finger with the whole, strum the chord, and then lift it up, play the open B string, then put the second finger back, then put the third finger down on the B string on the third fret, then A in the bass, right? Your A bass string, then high E, and then another A in the bass. Okay? So it's okay, and the picking's important, so it's down, up, down, up, down, up, down, right? Down, up, down, up, down, up, down. Okay? So second finger on the B string, then the open B string by itself, then put that finger back, then put the third finger on the B string on the third fret, then open A, then open E, then open A, okay? And it's down, up, down, up, down, up, down, okay? So from the beginning, it's this. Okay? And that's like the first half of the first section. Then you go back and you do it again, and it's going to end a little differently. That's what you would call a first ending and a second ending. So what you just learned is the first ending. And just one thing I forgot to mention on the G chord, just very important to do this picking, right? So when you start the G chord, it starts on an upstroke. All the bass notes are on downstrokes. All those little melody notes are on upstrokes, right? Bass notes on downstrokes, melody notes on upstrokes. Okay, and now you do this. Okay, now you're back to the beginning. So you do the beginning again, which is this. And now you go to what we call the second ending, right? So it starts the same as the G chord before, right? With an upstroke on the two strings, and then you put the third finger on the bass. Only this time you put your second finger on the high string. If that's too hard for you, you can use your first finger. Like I said, you know, as long as it sounds right. Okay, some people find the second finger hard to play, so they do the first finger. Okay, I like the second finger. It's good to kind of challenge yourself. If something's hard, doesn't mean don't do it because it's hard, right? It means, you know, see if it works. If it's still hard after 3 weeks or a month, then you might think about really changing something. Okay, so you start with this, with an upstroke and then a downstroke on the bass note. Then you're going to put the second finger down and strum through, and then lift it up and play the open string, then a bass note, and then you put the pinky on the third fret on the B string where it's been coming all along, and now you land on an A7 chord, right? Okay, just the 1 and the 2, right? 1 on the D string on the second fret, 2 on the B string on the second fret. So this is the second ending, right? So this comes in after this, right? You go back to this. Okay, this whole little beginning thing. And now you're at the second ending, and you hit an upstroke and a bass note, just like the first time you hit the G chord. Now you put your second finger on the high string, and you strum with the downstroke, strum through the chord with the second finger on top, then lift up the second finger to play the open string, then a bass note, then a pinky note on the B string, third fret, and then land on the A7 chord. Okay? So let me play the whole thing for you, and I'll play it nice and slow, okay, so you can see. Here we go, from the beginning, so it's the G chord, starting on the upstroke, to the A7 chord. That's the first time through. Now you go back and you repeat. Start with the D. And then, just like before, you're going to land on the G chord with a bass note. And now this this time you put down your second finger and lift it up. Put the second finger down and then lift it up, then bass note, then pinky on the B string, and then an A7. So the whole thing should be kind of a strummy feel, and yet you're picking out little melody notes all along the way. Okay, but you should kind of feel like you're strumming the guitar lightly. Okay, and the whole song is very like, the arrangement's kind of like every hair in its place, if you know what I mean. Like, it's a very refined little arrangement, okay? So if you get it, just follow the instructions. It'll come out sounding real nice. Okay, so that's the end of part 1. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I hope to be making part 2 very soon, and I hope to see you again. Again, my name's Peter Canellis, and thanks for watching. All right, thank you.